Hello everyone and welcome to the Damage Report. Having a little bit of issues with my video there. Yes, hey, it's a cool effect, a little strobe going on. Anyway, I'm John Iadarola. Welcome everyone to the Damage Report. We've got a doozy of a show for you. Lots to talk about. Very excited to be joined once again on the show. Viviana Vigil joins us once again. Viviana, how's it going?
I'm great, glad to be back. Lots to talk about, you're definitely right. It's been a busy week and it's Tuesday. So.
You know, I should have clarified this before the show. I don't want to do any spoilers. The thing we were talking about, is that a thing to be talked about and announced or like later?
I think so, but maybe not yet.
Okay, well then we'll just tease that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had an opportunity to plug something. So I do want to plug, where can people watch your work until we announce whatever's being announced?
There will be, I will be working with the Young Turks. You'll see some Facebook videos coming in the future. Until then, you can catch me always on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube with my own show, Contextualize This. But there will be more to come, and I hope next time I'm on the show, John, we can talk about it more.
Awesome, that sounds good.
Thank you.
And next time I'll check beforehand. But anyway, thank you to everybody who's already here trying to figure out what is actually going on. We appreciate you being here. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Share the stream so that people know we're live. And as we go through a big hour of news, if you leave us comments, super chats, tweets, twitchies, things like that, we're gonna be responding to those. With that said, Viviana, you ready to do this?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Last night, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did one of her big Instagram lives, and this was a major one that is driving a lot of political conversation both last night and throughout today, where she revealed quite a bit. Her own personal history as a survivor of sexual assault, the experience of the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. And we wanna play some highlights from this. Understand that is the topic matter. It is both graphic and potentially triggering, so understand that as we move into these videos. But first, here's the representative.
So many of the people who helped perpetrate and who take responsibility for what happened in the Capitol are trying to tell us all to move on. And they're trying to tell us to forget about what happened. They're trying to tell us that it wasn't a big deal. They're trying to tell us to move on without any accountability, without any truth telling, or without actually confronting the extreme damage, physical harm, loss of life, and trauma that was inflicted on not just me as a person, not just other people as individuals, but on all of us as a collective and on many other people. And that we cannot move on without accountability. We cannot heal without accountability. And so all of these people who want to tell us to move on are doing so at their own convenience.
Yeah, at the very least. And so we have a lot of videos we're gonna play and I have a lot of thoughts, but Viviana, I wanted to give you the chance to start us off.
Yeah, it was a long video, as is in AOC's true nature. I love her lives. She's so real. She's such a good example of the kind of leadership we need in this country to connect with the people. I cried, John. I cried. AOC means a lot to me. I know she means a lot to people. She represents a hope that we have in this country for democracy, for the working class, for people everywhere. Really the backbone of this country. That is what people like Bernie are fighting for. And of course, people like AOC. And let me remind everybody, this is a 31-year-old woman. She turned 31 in November, I believe, or October, just a few months ago. And this is a young woman who is putting everything on the line to fight for the people of this country. Her tale was so traumatizing to listen to, and I'm so glad that she shared it. It's upsetting to see a lot of the people talking about how dramatic she is and this and that, and trying to downplay exactly what she's talking about, gaslighting her in her own experience. And this is what colonization does to people who have been traumatized. This is what, as a Latina, as a person of color, we are used to this. We continue to be traumatized when every single insurgent that is not held accountable for their actions we get traumatized again because people are able to hurt us without accountability. So her coming from the heart and speaking to everybody, I mean, and even sharing. And if you didn't watch the whole thing, you might have missed that sexual assault survivor bit because she kind of slipped it in there at the end when she's talking about compounding traumas. And what she went through that day is just, I can't even imagine. I would be absolutely devastated if she had been assassinated. We have seen so many of our leaders, civil rights leaders, and I'm not likening her to the level of Malcolm X or the level of MLK or the level of Robert Kennedy, but it would have been heavy like that for me. She still has some work to do to get, into some of those places, but I see her trajectory following along some of these great leaders, and to see her life cut so short, and to see her, that's what made me choke up. I choke up now. To see her ready to do it, John. To see her ready to give her life. And just say, I've done what I can, and the rest of you guys carry the torch. This is what Bernie's slogan of yes, we can means. We work together. It isn't about her. It isn't about her political career, although she will have one. And it's not about her political career, and she's entitled to have a political career. But this is about all of us working together, and to see somebody who is putting everything on the line, to feel what they were going through. And she's an amazing storyteller. It just was very moving. I'm sorry, I got a little verklempt.
It was, no, it's certainly understandable. Yeah, and look, some of the things you referenced, we are gonna be playing excerpts from that. And so I certainly have thoughts, both to what she said and some of the response to it from the literal scummiest scum of the entire earth. But what she said there about the people who want us to move on, unfortunately we have language filters on the program, so I can't say exactly what I actually think about that, but I think that you can probably fill in the blanks.
Mother scratchers.
If I spend months to hire a hitman to kill someone, and then the person goes and fails, and then I say, you guys are getting so hung up on the hitman, seriously, just move on. No. What normally happens in this situation is the Dems would be the one that would be targeted by this and then tell us to move on, and we'd be frustrated by that. But at least they were the victims. The people who were calling for this, spending all the time on their shows, Tucker Carlson's trying to pretend that it was nothing. Suddenly, a cop being bludgeoned to death doesn't matter. No, you wanted this to happen. And by the way, if those people had gone in and had killed AOC and had killed Ilhan Omar and had gunned down tons of people, and the Republicans had just taken permanent control of US government, Tucker Carlson would be perfectly happy with that. Every single person saying, it wasn't that bad, it wasn't insurrection, it's not white supremacists, why are you getting so worked up, it's not terror. Every one of those was sitting on that day. And I remember all of us were watching this. You know what your experience was like. And they were hopeful. They were hopeful that this would accomplish the goals that they had. And it didn't, they failed, they were losers. And they don't get to tell us to just move on. There should be no consequences. That we should mock the people who narrowly escaped with their lives. But anyway, there is a lot in here, so I do want to move on. As we talked about, AOC did reveal on this Instagram live that part of the trauma that she's talking about is her having survived sexual assault. So let's go to that section now.
Folks who tell us to move on, that it's not a big deal, that we should forget what's happened, or even telling us to apologize. These are the same tactics of abusers. And I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And I haven't told many people that in my life. But when we go through trauma compounds on each other. And so whether you had a negligent or a neglectful parent, or whether you had someone who was verbally abusive to you, whether you are a survivor of abuse, whether you experience any sort of trauma.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can't listen to it and not just feel so terrible. Well, I should say rational people with actual hearts can't listen to that and not be just devastated by it. Some people can work through that. And while I like to think that my political value system is based on positive values, positive emotions, a desire for progress, and want to better the lives of others, I don't generally found my political beliefs in resentment or vilification or rage and that sort of thing. The disdain I have for the people who watched that or didn't even care to watch it, just knew that she had said that and thought, I don't even care enough about this experience to view it. I'm just gonna judge it and I'm gonna attack it so that I can get a couple of Patreon followers or something like that. I cannot explain the disdain I have for those people and how personally sickening and soiling it feels to even be engaged in this gigantic shared project with people who have those motivations. Like, we occasionally have to be reminded that they're out there and that they're ostensibly doing something like us, but it is just so sickening. The people who have tried to make fortunes off of vilifying her, and not just AOC, but others as well, Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar and a number of others, just the constant vilification for almost exclusively white male profit is disgusting. And days like that, I hate everything about this. Knowing that she's revealing what she's experienced and it's devastating, and that she knows that it's not going away. It's not gonna get better. She's gonna be facing those threats and the harassment and the demonization tomorrow and next week and next year as much as she has up until this point. And it makes me so sick. It makes me feel so bad for her and for others and for other women like her that might be thinking about getting involved in politics, knowing that this is one of the totally needless additional costs that they're gonna bear. It just makes me sick for the present. It makes me sick for the future.
You know, John, I'm with you. It's very upsetting. I am lucky, I guess. I've been trained a little bit. You know, I used to be a children's social worker, and it isn't lost on me that AOC disclosed her sexual assault during this disclosure of what happened to her. Because when you are vulnerable and when your life is flashing before your eyes, all of these other things come back to you. And it's very upsetting to see sexual assault be discounted. We saw it with Brock Turner. We saw it with one of our own Supreme Court justices. Well, it wasn't that bad. Well, it was date rape. Well, it was this, molestation of children. When I was a social worker, we'd have kids, their own fathers molest them and be told, well, I didn't have sex with you, just fondled you. So this whole dismissive behavior is abusive. It is traumatic. And like I said, it isn't lost on me that she's correlating these things because it brings up the same feelings.
Yeah.
And the good news here is talking about it starts the healing process. The good news is calling it out for what it is starts to break it down. So no longer are families so quiet anymore when there's molestation by that uncle. You know, years ago in my family, there was molestation things. People, shh, don't call the cops, don't do this and that. That's changing now, and it's because of strength of people like AOC. And it's because of strength of children who come forward and disclose that they've been touched, they've been this or that. And I know we're talking about sexual abuse, and then we're talking about, the insurgents on the, raiding the Capitol. And it seems like they're two different things, but it really is a violation of trust, respect, honor, dignity. And when you have a history of that, not just her history as a sexual abuse survivor, but also her history as a woman of color in a system that continually discounts her experience. So this is something that, it was a very moving video for me to watch, just because she's an amazing storyteller, and people want to liken that to be her being dramatic. This is a time where we need good storytellers. We need someone to set the stage, because we were watching it in we couldn't even believe our eyes. Now that I know what was going on inside, and each member has their own story of what they experienced, because it was chaos. You know, your wife and I, Arlene and I, did a live on Instagram right the day after the insurrection on the 7th. And I said then, it's an inside job. It was obvious it was an inside job. It was obvious that they had planned to allow these people to get into the Capitol. Why? I used to be on all kinds of movie carpets, John, and they had better security there. I used to interview stars on the carpet. They have those little cattle grates, but they have like 3 different ways to get in, cops, all. You can't even get onto a red carpet, but you can walk onto the steps of Congress. You can't get on those Capitol steps, even on a regular day. When it's a full session, this was planned and it was allowed. So anybody who wants to go out there and talk about how she's being dramatic, I want to know why the rest of them aren't being dramatic. Our Capitol was sieged. They tried to get in there. They were just a bunch of idiots. They didn't accomplish anything. Like you said, they're failures. They're losers.
Exactly.
But they still did some damage emotionally and physically. And we are not gonna sit back. We're not gonna let the Democrats sit back and pretend that didn't happen. We're not gonna let them use this for political power either. We're gonna call it for what it is. And thank God for AOC, thank God she's okay. I would have even been upset if Mike Pence got hurt. I would, I mean, obviously I don't, but it's because an attack on any of our elected leaders is attack on us. We have to honor that we have a system in place, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. And it is so upsetting that we have people, Mike Pence's own party, they were gonna hang that man. Do not tell me for a second if they didn't run into AOC that they wouldn't have hurt her. Do not tell me for a second they wouldn't have tried to hurt her.
Nobody actually believes that. Some people will say it, they don't actually believe it. And they're the same people that, as you point out, are calling her dramatic. And AOC, I'm sure, has had to process that there is no correct way to do this. If you don't talk about it, they pretend it doesn't exist. If you wait too long to talk about, then how bad could it have been? If you talk about it coldly and just based on the facts, then it must not have been that bad. If you talk about it and make it real, well, then you're just being dramatic. There is no appropriate way to talk about something that they fundamentally don't care about and don't want to fix. But there's a number of other videos, and I want to make sure that we get to as much of this. So here from the IG Live last night, Representative Ocasio-Cortez is talking about abusers and about Ted Cruz, some of what's been going on recently there.
So when I see a party who cheered on violence that killed 5, maybe now 6 people, a second Capitol police officer took their life in the aftermath of the attack this past week. When we are still losing people, when we don't know how many people are gonna develop PTSD after what happened, when we don't know how many people are still hospitalized. I mean, there are people who, sure, they may not have passed away, but they lost fingers, they lost eyes. And these people are just trying to tell us it's not a big deal. And they're trying to say, you're making too big a deal over it. Or my favorite, this past week, Ted Cruz and now Representatives Chip Roy, and oh, by the way, some of the other representatives who actually encouraged people to threaten members of Congress or tweeted out the location of the speaker are now telling me to apologize for saying and speaking truth to what happened. These are the tactics of abusers, or rather, these are the.
Exactly, yeah. There's little as sickening as the idea that she's the one who's actually done something wrong. And also revealing at the same time that they understand that they can ask for people to apologize or to give a statement when it's not a member of their own party. If it's something about, revealing the abuse that you've suffered, then you're the bad person. If it's denying the existence of mass shootings, well, I don't really want to talk about that. But anyway, I do want to go to another sort of related video, and then we'll have a chance to comment. Here she is talking about the situation.
See this happen, how I feel and how I felt was not again. I'm not gonna let this happen again. I'm not gonna let it happen to me again. I'm not gonna let it happen to the other people who've been victimized by this situation again. And I'm not gonna let this happen to our country, ever. I'm not gonna let it happen.
And that should be the goal for everyone. And I don't know exactly what needs to be done to make sure that it doesn't happen again, but I know that just pretending it didn't happen and having no consequences for anyone who incited it or aided it, I don't think that's gonna accomplish that. So we're gonna try something. Viviana, what do you think?
I mean, I'm right with her. We cannot let this happen again. We have to get people on both sides of the aisle to admit and acknowledge how incredibly serious this was. And we're not seeing it even with how these insurgents are being, or treasonous. I don't even know what to call them anymore. Insurgents is almost too good of a name for these people. They are, and I'm gonna be doing a video about this soon, John. But I'm likening them to gang affiliations. And when you're here in Los Angeles, my dad's done a lot of work with gangs, and he works as an expert witness from time to time. And let's say you're 14 years old and you jump into a car, and your cousin is gonna go do a drive-by, and you have no idea your cousin's gonna do a drive-by. But you've been jumped into the gang, you got your little tattoo 2 weeks before, you're in the car, you're just there. They go, they do a drive-by, they shoot someone, they kill someone. That 14-year-old gets life for just being there. And you're gonna tell me that these insurgents get to skate free and get to ask for trips to Mexico and organic food and all this bullshit, all this bail, money that's just easy to, they just come right out? No, we need this kind of thing. This is the trauma she's talking about. Holding those people accountable and holding our leaders like Cruz and Hawley accountable is how we stop this from happening again. And that's not happening right now. And that's what everybody, and including the Biden administration, they're trying to be real soft-shoed with this. They need to come on heavy. This is an assault on our own soil by our own people. There's nothing more serious than that.
They seem to be taking it seriously. I mean, look, Biden hasn't really gotten involved in much of this, which is frustrating. Anyway, there's one other area that I do want to talk about. One of the most dramatic parts of AOC's Instagram Live last night was when she talked about the actual experience of what happened on the 6th. And so here's a section of that.
Realize that it's too late. That it's too late for me to get into the closet. And so I tried to I go back in and I hide back in the bathroom behind the door. And then I just start to hear these yells of, "Where is she? Where is she?" And I just thought to myself, they got inside. And so I hide behind my door like this, like I'm here, and the bathroom door starts going like this, like the bathroom door is behind me, or rather in front of me, and I'm like this, and the door hinges right here, and I just hear, "Where is she? Where is she?" And this was the moment where I thought everything was over. And the weird thing about moments like these is that you lose all sense of time. In retrospect, maybe it was 4 seconds, maybe it was 5 seconds, maybe it was 10 seconds, maybe it was 1 second, I don't know. It felt like my brain was able to have so many thoughts in that moment, between these screams and these yells of, "Where is she? Where is she?" And so I go down and I thought I was going to die.
It's just absolutely devastating. And we've talked about the fact that, if someone had actually felt like there isn't a person in that crowd that hasn't been ritualistically like whipped into a frenzy on a nightly basis about AOC or about Ilhan Omar, or about these other women that they've been trained to loathe.
John, Democrats hate her. Democrats hate AOC.
Yeah.
And Congresswoman Omar. She is having so much attention on her, and she was talking about it in this video, even preceding the 6th on Monday and on Tuesday, and the kind of feeling that she was getting in the community just with these people being in town, and then taunting her just feet from her car. I mean, there was no protection for her or for any of our other leaders that were there in Congress from this violent mob. It is heart-wrenching. She hid in Representative Porter's office, and and even acknowledged she thought maybe she's safer in a white lady's office, John.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
why don't we actually have a little bit of that? Why don't we show that, and then we can talk about Porter's involvement.
First, she saw me, and we waved. I went into my office, and a couple seconds later, she knocked and she said, could we come in? And I said, of course. And she began to, her staffer was trying to describe what had happened. And Alex is really usually unfailingly polite and very personable. And she wasn't even really talking to me. She was opening up doors, and I was like, can I help you? What are you looking for? And she said, I'm looking for where I'm going to hide. And the thing that will always stay with me, the two memories that really, especially as a mom, I think were just really powerful for me, was when she said, I was saying, well, don't worry, I'm a mom, I'm calm, I've got everything here we need. We could live for a month in this office. And she said, I just hope I get to be a mom. I hope I don't die today.
Viviana?
I mean, that just got to hit you in the gut, right? That's just got to hit you in the gut. Not only do I want AOC to be mom, I want her to be the president. We need this lady alive. We need her, out with the people. Where was she the day of the inauguration? She was out with her constituents fighting for $1 raise out for grocery workers in her community. Also she was feeling a threat on her life, so she wasn't trying to go back around these people. I mean,
yeah.
This is not the first time a government has had people like Hawley and Cruz who are willing to hurt other members of government for political gain. This is not the first time that this has happened. I mean, there's a whole play about it. I don't know if you've seen it, from Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's called Hamilton. A dude was shot. I don't know if you know this, John, but this happens.
I've seen that one. Yes.
This happens, and we need to take this seriously. I don't know why the gaslighting is just, maybe we're all just so conditioned and we're okay with it. Tucker Carlson, especially, he's been saying it since the 7th of January that this is no big deal and playing it down since then. It is despicable, it's disgusting, it's un-American, and you never hear me say that. It's un-American, and it's not democratic. I mean, this is something that we all have to take really seriously. I love that she went and found solace with Representative Porter.
Yep.
I hate that, and she wasn't willing to go and meet with the other Congress people and the other members because they were all meeting in one extraction point. She describes in the video, John, and she was afraid still, and I don't blame her for one. If this was an inside job, which it does feel like, and she was already, getting that premonition before Wednesday even came, that things were not being held, the crowd wasn't being held at bay. This ain't over. This ain't over, and once again, we applaud AOC for her strength.
Yeah, I like when she went out, picketing, she's got to be worried constantly. She's not safer in New York, campaigning, going door to door, walking around the Capitol.
And if something happens to her, Tucker Carlson he's going to need to be sued because he incited.
No, Tucker Carlson is going to talk about how it had nothing to do with him, and these are good patriots, and why are you so focused on it? I can't even say if people have been killed in the 6th, because they did kill people. They beat a cop to death with a fire extinguisher. If they had killed more people, Fox would have run even more interference for them. Since the 6th, it's been we're totally for peace and it wasn't that bad. Why are you so focusing on it?
I have family members saying it was just a few knuckleheads, John. Just a few knuckleheads killing cops. Did you see I mean, you could see people's bodies as the footage has come out. It's horrific. It's like wartime. Yeah. What in the world are we just sweeping this under the rug for?
And so all those videos that we just showed, especially the last two of her talking about hiding, I want to read, and I don't want to get into too much of a conversation about her because unfortunately we're going to talk about her later on. But I want to read a couple of quotes from February 2019 before a different storming of the Capitol. This was for the Fund the Wall March, organized in part by then she hadn't yet announced she'd be running for Congress, but Marjorie Greene. And she said this about the effort to flood the Capitol, in her words. They are nothing and they should fear us. They should be cowering in fear. And you know what? If you show up in big numbers on February 23rd, I promise you, they'll be struck with fear on the inside. All of us together, when we rise up, we can end all of this. We can end it. We can do it peacefully. We can. I hope we don't have to do it the other way. I hope not. But we should feel like we will if we have to, because we are the American people. So between when she helped to organize that first invasion of the Capitol to the second one, when she was on the inside laughing at the people who were worried about catching COVID in tight quarters because idiots like her wouldn't put on a mask, she like exactly predicted what she wanted to see, and they got it. Some people were killed, representatives were fearing for their lives. Mike Pence could have been torn apart by a mob, and she's more like excited and thrilled with herself than ever following that.
You know,
we got sick people in government. We got sick people in government.
We do. We always have, John, but we do. We continue to. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about Marjorie, Miss Marjorie, with her bad blonde dye job with Ford. It's very dry, her hair.
Oh my God. Anyway, obviously feel terrible for AOC as well as many others who went.
I honestly, I feel good right now, John. After hearing AOC's story, she makes me feel strong. Her strength makes me feel strong. It makes me feel like, you know what? This is all we have to do. We have to get up. We have to dust ourselves off, and we have to say what is happening, the truth, the facts, and we need to keep moving forward. And so I am invigorated by her disclosure last night. I know a lot of sexual abuse survivors. I'm a domestic violence survivor. Violence against women is super common. Out of like 5 women, 3 or 4 have been assaulted in some way. So I'm not shocked to hear her disclose, but I am invigorated by her strength. And I know that we can get through this if we all come together and we continue to speak out against this kind of ridiculous behavior.
Exactly.
Treasonous.
Yeah, and thankfully she is forcing that to be a conversation that everyone is gonna have to engage in. And some people are gonna reveal themselves in
and she knows she was gonna be attacked. She knows she was gonna be attacked after that story. That's where she waited. And she even said, I waited to give them a chance to say, you know what, this is wrong. And that way she didn't have to lay everybody on the line. But she's not wrong. They did try to kill her. They were trying to kill Mike Pence. This is something that really could have happened. And I'm super glad it didn't, but let us not disregard. Like if people had gotten into your house, John, and started busting things around and where's she at? Who knows if that Capitol Police officer was doing a half-assed job. I don't know. I think they cut all the numbers of the staff that day. Yeah. I mean, there's been memos going around and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah, and just look, nobody in the audience needs to be told that they're not the people we're disagreeing with aren't engaging in good faith. But I just want you to bear in mind that the mob that broke into the Capitol and killed people, they are obviously significantly, demonstrably less concerned about that than the threat that was posed to those 2 gun-wielding white people when peaceful protesters were marching down the street near their house. Like they did a month of coverage about those people and how, oh my God, they were almost killed. Nobody even came near them. Nobody wanted to, nobody was interested.
Nobody was even
these aren't serious people. These aren't honest people. They're just not. Anyway, we have a lot of other news that we're gonna get to. I do wanna read a few comments from the audience because a lot of comments have been coming in. Thank you to everybody who's been wanting to engage with us. Sinful Solution sent in a super chat saying, well said, Viviana. I'm not sure exactly what comment that was about, but there were a lot of very well said comments. So thank you for that. Kai Allen says, I couldn't stop crying watching AOC. Vulnerability is power. Exactly. Lena Peak, how's it going, Lena? Says, it's so important to expose gaslighting and abuse in the broader culture so that we can recognize it in our interpersonal lives too. Thankful for AOC. Exactly. Nina, thank you for upgrading your YouTube membership, as well as Tawahana Purdue. Appreciate that. And Richard Moon, thank you. Just complete coincidence, but yesterday for both on Twitch and our YouTube members, we rolled out our first AOC emote. Turned out to be timely, Jesus. EDG says, love the show, watch every day with family before work. Where can I get the music played before the show? That is going to be a question, I think, for Bart, but I will try to find out about that. Green Fairy Dragon says, my parents were abusive when I was a child. Now, same words as GOP. It's time to move on. That was the past. Oh, I don't remember that. That never happened. I'm only a year older than AOC. They're Trump supporters. Geez, although abuse obviously comes from all quarters, but I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. Electric Blue Omelet Dragon says 100% correct, Viviana. They have to be held accountable, no exceptions. Letting them off says we're okay with this happening again. Well, it's consistent. They are okay with it happening again. So Randall Flagg says the identity and charges for the insurgents should be displayed in short YouTube ads and add to a public list like Megan's list, not calling for violence against them, but their actions need to stay with them forever. Well, thankfully, at least there are charges being filed against many of them. They ended up finding far more than I would have predicted initially. I assumed once they got out of the area that was gonna be it, and thankfully there will be some charges at least. Atticus Emerson says, as a fellow sexual violence survivor, my heart goes out to AOC. The past 4 years has been overwhelming and disheartening, especially with all the gaslighting. I want other survivors to know there's hope. I pressed charges and won. That's awesome, Atticus. Glad to hear that. Over on Twitch, Linan gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you for that. Tell me what to put, gifted one as well. Making 100 gift subs in the channel. That's very kind of you. Thank you for that. Super Solutions subscribed for the 6th month. Terry Berry for the 8th. Pure Alicia for the 3rd. Thank you for that. It says, good morning, Dragon fam. Good morning to you. Gina the Introvert for 9 months, which I think is about as long as our Twitch has actually existed. So from basically the beginning, thank you for that. And Obi Mom Kenobi sent in a comment saying, I also have tears, but they are tears of anger as well as compassion. The thought that she and others felt this way on that day and have to go back in that place and relive it because she is fighting for us. Exactly. And look, we played a good chunk out of that video, but there's a lot more there where she talked about sort of more of her thoughts as she was worried about dying, her hopes for the future and things like that. So if you have time, it's obviously difficult and triggering, but you should definitely take a look at the full video. Now, that said, why don't we move on to our next topic? The Senate trial for Donald Trump is set to begin in around a week, and I am starting to wonder what some prominent Republicans think a trial actually is, because some of the things they're warning us against sound like the very point of having this at all. So here is Lindsey Graham, who apparently doesn't want witnesses. He doesn't want nothing going on this trial. Here he is.
Well, we've only got a couple of seconds, but let me ask you, do you anticipate witnesses being called and then being cross-examined?
I hope not. They didn't call any in the House. I think we know what happened that day. But if you open up that can of worms, we'll want the FBI to come in and tell us about how people actually pre-planned these attacks and what happened with the security footprint at the Capitol. You open up Pandora's box if you call one witness. I hope we don't call any and we vote and get this trial over next week when it starts.
Just really fast, in case people aren't sure, he doesn't mean that Trump's guilt is so obvious that we don't need to go through a big thing. We can just vote to convict him. He doesn't want there to be any consequences. So it's not just an expedited trial. He doesn't want anything to happen. He just wants to move on, forget it happened. And in the future, if you want to call for some sort of violent insurrection, you will be pretty assured that there will be no consequences for you if it fails. So I have more thoughts about that, but Viviana, what did you think about the, let's just get it done in one day, no witnesses, nothing?
I'm glad you broke that down for me because I wasn't quite sure what side of the fence Lindsey Graham was on today. He seems to be blown left and right, whichever the wind is blowing, he decides he wants to go. This guy is so spineless, like, when is he out of office, honestly? Because this guy does not need to be representing anybody. He has no backbone at all. Of course they don't want a trial, but guess what? He was scared when people were shouting at him in the airport. He was a little bit frightened. Matt, those are the same people, my friend. Don't you want to see those people accountable for what they did? Don't you want to make sure that they don't do it again? Frankly, I think a lot of them do need mental health help. Many of their legal cases are based on the fact that they are crazy. That's what their own attorneys are saying. And I do think that a lot of these people who were there at the Capitol have violent tendencies. I mean, we've seen some of these guys in the very beginning that breached that first, I don't even want to say they breached it. Essentially, the cops were like, okay, let them in. But they were violent. You could feel it. You could just in the video. Can you even imagine in person? When we've seen more and more of these things come forward, I'm not surprised that they don't want to have witnesses because stuff is scary. And people are gonna start telling stories like AOC, it's gonna really get real. And a lot of the people that were there on the floor, they did see a lot of stuff firsthand, so you don't need a lot of witnesses. But we do want to hear from the FBI. We do want to hear what was planned before. There are a lot of people that orchestrated this event. Let us not forget that Trump, who never misses his own party, left his own party to be in DC on January 6th to watch this melee happen in real time. Yeah. They knew it was happening.
Like, I get that you don't want witnesses, Lindsey Graham. I get that, but you're gonna have to come up with a better argument for why we shouldn't have witnesses. Like, you could be honest and say it's gonna make us look really, really bad. But you saying, now, come on, if we have witnesses, it's gonna open up Pandora's box. And I define Pandora's box as bringing in the FBI to like talk about how it was planned and the security footprint. I think the expression is don't threaten me with a good time. Yeah, no, that's what we want. That's the entire thing that we want. We want to know what went into the planning. We want to know why no one was actually there. These are very important questions we need answered. And you think that's like the dark consequence of this impeachment trial, that we might find out more about it? He doesn't care about that, and he doesn't want to know. Even though he was, again, one of those who theoretically could have been targeted for not being sufficiently loyal to the president. Yeah, no, I want that. I want the witnesses. I want to find out exactly what was going on. That's kind of the entire point. But Lindsey Graham's a senator, like who am I to teach him what the purpose of an impeachment trial is?
You have a lot more knowledge than him, I can guarantee you on that. But you know who I was really disappointed in was James Comey, because he was one that also said that he did not think there should be a trial. And I don't really understand his logic. And I'm gonna go with Comey instead of Graham, because I just think Graham's a complete moron and there's no point in even trying to make sense, because this guy tomorrow will be something else. But Comey knows how dangerous Trump was, really warned everybody. Now this has happened and then still doesn't want a trial because he doesn't think that it's good for the American people. How is not having a trial good for the American people? How is sweeping this under the rug good for American people? I mean, I just don't, what do you think his basis is for that sort of thinking?
I think it's really inconvenient for them. I think that he has spent the last 4 years after he flipped from, like being vigorously opposed to Donald Trump to, oh wait, that's my future career on the line, I guess I love him now. He's just been defending him. He's been running interference for him for 4 years, and he's gonna keep doing that because he thinks that he needs to. And he's not even 100% wrong. If he were to demand an investigation and consequences, Trump would turn on him, and that probably would be a primary for him the next time. And so I can like have a little bit of empathy that I understand the situation, but I also get what you're doing. And what you're doing is protecting the person who inspired a fascist attempted takeover of the government. So you kind of become my enemy at that point. But in that video, he did reveal something else. One interesting new legal theory that some prominent Republicans have in advance of the Senate impeachment trial is that, oh wait, it can't have been incitement because some people came to DC planning to do something. We showed a video of Lindsey Graham making that point. Here is Sean Hannity making a very similar argument.
After you point out that what law enforcement and court documents say that it was pre-planned, so it wasn't a spontaneous, it was something that had been planned ahead of time, couldn't have been incited by anybody. If the Democrats want to go down this road of witnesses, and I hope they do.
Okay, so he supposedly actually wants witnesses, but he doesn't. He doesn't want the trial at all. So his argument is that because some people came with pipe bombs, they already wanted to commit violence, so there couldn't have been any incitement or any culpability for Donald Trump. And we're gonna have some receipts on that. I wanna give Viviana a chance to cut in. I will just say that I think that is on its face the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I don't even know how he with a straight face could, what a weak shield for your God Emperor then. Well, no, some of them are already really violent people that love the president. That's your defense for Trump. Interesting.
They clearly all failed their Logic 101 class in college. I mean, those kind of arguments are just ridiculous and they don't hold any water. I mean, when you talk about inciting, it doesn't have to be in the heat of the moment. You can incite something and it can take time, and it can take 4 years to get to where it went. And that's exactly what we've seen. So, this is that logical fallacy that we learned about when, in our undergrad education. So it's for him to go that way, and that's Tucker Carlson all day. The guy is full of logical fallacy all day. You watch his show and it's just straw man, straw man, straw man, and people eat it up, and that's how conspiracy theories get taken off and all this kind of stuff, because people don't understand a good basis of a logical argument. And we're seeing it right here. Well, how could it be this if it was this? Well, how could it be this if it was this? Well, it can be all things, sir. And if you have somebody for years saying Trump was inciting this before the election. He was already saying that the election was going to be stolen if he didn't win. And he says it with a laugh. Well, if I don't win, then it wasn't fair. It's like something a child in a schoolyard would say, but somehow we're taking it seriously. Like, it makes no sense. We know that he was lying. Here we are. We know we've come to this point. So for anybody to sit back and say, it wasn't incited by him because look at other people well, how did they get those ideas? They were literally carrying a flag with his name on it. Don't tell me he didn't incite it.
Well, let's go over some of them, by the way. So let's skip past this next argument, because Sean Hannity again tried to say that because someone brought pipe bombs, they couldn't have been incited by the president. Okay, well, Caesar Sayak sent pipe bombs to like everyone in media, and that was directly incited by the president. We gave him one massive incitement to violence free. But anyway, here are just a few of the things he said. I don't want to read 30 things, so we've culled down some, but there's a lot more available. Do you remember the period after the election? On December 12th, on the day of pro-Trump rallies in Washington, D.C., Trump tweeted, "Wow, thousands of people forming in Washington for Stop the Steal. Didn't know about this, but I'll be seeing them." Then that same day he said, "We have just begun to fight." On the 19th, he tweeted his praise for a report by his advisor, Peter Navarro, alleging election fraud. "A great report by Peter. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest in DC on January 6th. Be there, will be wild." And it was. It did get pretty wild. If you think a wild time was beating a cop to death and trying to kill another one with an American flag. On December 26th, he tweeted, "The Justice Department and the FBI have done nothing about the 2020 presidential election voter fraud, the biggest scam in our nation's history, despite overwhelming evidence. They should be ashamed. History will remember. Never give up. See everyone in DC on January 6th." So this is almost 2 months after the election. He's still saying it was stolen. Everyone knows that it was stolen. The whole system is against you. Go to DC on the 6th. I'll see you there. On January 1st, the big protest rally in Washington, D.C. will take place at 11. Stop the steal. And then on January 4th, 2 days before, "If the liberal Democrats take the Senate and the White House, and they're not taking this White House, we're gonna fight like hell. I'll tell you right now, we're going to take it back." Well, they tried. They did try to take it back after literally months of being told it had been stolen and that they need to go there and they need to fight like hell and they need to stop the steal and they need to take it back. Yes, Sean Hannity, he did incite them on the 6th, but that wasn't the beginning of it. He'd been doing it for months, and you know that already. The fact that you care more about protecting him than about the fact that someone brought freaking pipe bombs to the Capitol says a lot more about you than about the charges facing the president.
Well, the charges could also be held on him as well, because Tucker Carlson was right there holding the president's hand, saying the same exact thing, regurgitating it, Hannity, getting it out to these Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson, everybody on Fox. Not everybody. I'll say not everybody. There were a few voices in there that were like, "Well, I don't know. I still want to get paid though," and they still were doing their thing. But Hannity, anybody perpetuating this lie is guilty of inciting this, because people are in vulnerable places. They're weak-minded people out there. They're very susceptible to this kind of manipulation, and that is what has happened. There's a lot of people who are angry and they're just a powder keg waiting for a match, and Trump was happy to give them that, and he enjoyed watching it. And don't for a second think that he wouldn't have stayed in office if they would have successfully done something and stopped the count and convinced Mike Pence by force to not validate the election result, the Electoral College. Don't think he wouldn't have been Putin. He would have done it. He looks up to the guy.
No, you're crazy. Sean Hannity would have been boycotting America if Trump had remained president somehow, because he cares about democracy. Anyway, we've got slightly maybe more positive news coming up. I want to read just a couple of quick super chats because a lot have been coming in. Sharon Costello says, "How long did it take for the Republicans to forget and get over Benghazi?" I will let you know when they get over it, because they still do segments about it on Fox News quite often. Let's see, Sir Some Keat Wright says, could TDR or TYT start a fund to help AOC pay for her security or something? I don't know that that's a thing that's possible, but I hope that she's looking at security, and I'm sure people would be very supportive of it. Sia Rat says, John, who ripped out the panic buttons? I don't know. And I don't know who led the tours. Apparently we can never find that out.
Yeah.
I'm assuming some investigation is going on behind closed doors, but it has been almost a month since that attack. And they are
Why are the Capitol Police killing themselves, John? Why are they killing themselves? Why are these guys committing suicide? What the F is going on over there? What happened?
I don't know.
And you know what upsets me is you hear Trump's attorneys talking about, listen to his words on the 6th, listen to his speech. Everything Trump says is between the lines. So he could say, it's just like when Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying, I hope we can do it peacefully, but if we can't, you don't have to say go attack and build and burn and do. You don't have to say those words. You can speak between the lines, and that's all Trump does because he barely says 3 words anyway. You have to kind of understand in between the lines what he's really trying to say.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. It's also, we need to fight like hell. They've stolen your government. Like a lot of it's pretty explicit too.
A lot of actual words as well.
Yeah,
right.
Bowie Jab says, I do remember AOC saying politics wasn't her future, but I think this might have galvanized her to it being her future. At least that's what I hope, AOC 2024. Yeah, she said that, considering the threats that, this is before the 6th, she said she's not sure that her whole life is gonna be politics. And honestly, while AOC dropping out of politics would be one of the single biggest hits to the cause, if it happens, I can't say that I don't understand. She's under no obligation to lose her life. I have endless respect for her and admiration for her bravery, and not just her, but others too, for doing so. But they don't have to do that. Nobody needs to get killed by insane white supremacist fascists. So I hope that she stays, but I worry that this might actually increase the chance that maybe she doesn't run for re-election, or maybe she just stays in the House because she doesn't want an even higher profile. I don't know. Gary, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Randall Flag and Easy Oven Operator to Tier 2. Hope that you enjoy our last top 10 list, which was our attempt to get out in front of some of Marjorie Taylor Greene's conspiracy theories, us predicting things she will inevitably be shown to believe. Let's see. May Money into Building says, as someone who was drugged and assaulted at my place of work years ago, I feel for AOC. It was an angry time. This country is so shameful. Stay strong, fam. Love the Witch Queen of Oakland Dragon. Thank you. Terror, just terrible. Yeah. Blue Lizard Guts says, I kind of miss John's Trump voice. Yeah, well, yeah. I didn't, but thank you.
You do a pretty good job, John.
Thank you. We haven't had to talk about it much, honestly, for weeks.
Thank God. Oh,
we haven't really had to.
It's so traumatizing when I see him on screen now. I'm just like, is this, when is it over?
I haven't seen him talk in weeks since before inauguration. Anyway, we're gonna try to fit in maybe 2 more stories because there's so much news. Some of it we're not gonna get to, unfortunately. We got a very important interview coming up after the show with Tom Hartman about his upcoming book. But that said, let's jump into this next story.
Is not the time to count pennies. Now is the time to address these monumental crises. And I think what the president is proposing is a very good start in doing that.
What is Bernie Sanders last night talking about the still ongoing negotiations over a stimulus bill, which had an added wrinkle at the beginning of this week with 10 Republicans coming to Biden and saying, we want to negotiate. Fortunately for them, we know a little bit about what they want. Here's a little visualization of the differences between Biden's plan and their plan. It's kind of a mess, but what you need to know is that there's fewer red squares and they're smaller. So huge portions of aid to state and local governments and all of that just don't exist in theirs. And the actual direct payments are far smaller, far more targeted. Basically, everything is as scaled down as they think they can get away with. And that is what they want to push on Biden. Biden, the guy who already went to $1,400 checks from $2,000 checks. I'm never gonna move on from that. Let alone more than that. They're saying, no, no, no. After our great leadership during the first year of this pandemic, we think you should go with our plan. Our plan that lost us the presidency, our approach to COVID that lost us the Senate. We can't lose more than we've lost, and yet you should go with what we have to say. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where this seems to be going. But Viviana, what do you think about the current state of this aid package talk?
I mean, thank God we have Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, geez, what an amazing angel he is. But you're going from 170 billion for schools to 20 billion. Weren't these the same people demanding that schools stay open in the middle of the pandemic? Do they not see that it's going to take major support to be able to get those schools in a safe place for our kids and our families and our teachers and our administrators?
Viviana, that's if you want it to be a safe place. If you just want it to be open, that's pretty cheap.
That's the problem. I noticed that there's no rental assistance in their package. These are people that are not taking into account. I mean, we live in Los Angeles, John, so we know how severe the homeless crisis is. And we know that without rental assistance, that is going to explode. And a lot of times people think about others experiencing homelessness as adult men. Guess what? There are little kids out there that are experiencing homelessness too. They're not as visual yet. Take away that rental assistance, you're gonna start seeing it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I was very worried when I saw that Biden was going to be meeting with them to potentially negotiate. There was a little bit of sign that maybe he's not going to pull a first couple years of Obama, because I saw a tweet from Jeff Stein. White House has put out a statement saying they are not open to lowering the stimulus payments below $1,400 per person. Although, as we've pointed out, they already lowered it.
How did this even happen?
But they're saying they're not going to lower it beyond that. But they might be willing to open to changing the income thresholds, which again just makes me want to rip out the little bit of hair that I have. But apparently they're at least drawing a line at where they were treated to, which is the $1,400 checks. And in terms of the overall, this stupid nonsense conversation that we're having about bipartisanship and unity, which honestly I blame Joe Biden for a lot of that because he does talk about it a lot. His chief of staff put out a tweet saying this is a bipartisan agenda, pointing to the fact that 2/3 of Americans side with Joe Biden on COVID relief. And I want to give you a few of those numbers to buttress Ronald Klain's point. 63% of people would like to see coronavirus aid pass as soon as possible. 72% of Democrats, 59% of independents, even 56% of Republicans, 55% of people would be fine with literally changing the rules of the Senate to get it passed as quickly as possible. Notably, the most important priority for these people is not unity or bipartisanship. It turns out they would rather eat than not eat in a bipartisan fashion. Weird. Yeah. But anyway, 79% of people support $1,400 stimulus checks. 77% feel the same about funding to help schools reopen. Other efforts, including an eviction moratorium, increased funding for vaccines and testing, also had a majority of people's support. It is already bipartisan, whether elected Republicans want to recognize that or not. And I would say that maybe they could be a little bit more humble with their demands, considering that they have failed as epically as a party can, specifically because they're not doing anything about this, and they spent almost a year not doing anything about this. That took the presidency from Donald Trump. He would have gotten reelected if he had even pretended to give half a damn about the pandemic. They would still control the Senate if they'd pretended to care, give half a damn about it. They didn't do that, so they lost. How many ways do the American people need to show that they want something to be done? They've done it in every way imaginable. Now, hopefully the bill will actually get passed at long last.
I'm really hopeful. You said you were afraid when Biden met with these GOP members, but I really feel like Biden's in the IDGAF club. He's an older man. He's at the end of his political career. This is not going to be an Obama administration. Obama still had a political agenda and a career and a sort of legacy to uphold. I hope that Biden is just going to try to do the right thing. Who cares? I'll just get it done. I'll just push it through. Because let's see. I don't know. He owes a lot of favors. That's the danger that I am afraid of. Biden's been in politics his whole life, and he owes a lot of people back scratches. So we're gonna see where that lays in here. But
in regards gives a lot of unnecessary back scratches historically.
Yeah. Well, 63% of people need aid. 79% of people support the $1,400, and 100% of the people of the 79% support $2,000 checks too. Nobody's gonna be mad to get an extra $600 in that check, which I still haven't even gotten my last stimulus check. And I know a lot of Americans haven't. Why? Because the post office is struggling still. So we are already, by the time we get that check, it's gonna be June, and then they're gonna be like, oh, you're vaccinated, you don't need it anymore. I appreciate Biden letting them in the office and having a meeting with them. Why? Because we had 4 years with a president who didn't even consider that and didn't even do his job. He didn't do his work at all. So that's good, because that is gonna help, give this veil of unity at least. It makes me laugh that Fox News and all these GOP people complain about Biden's unity plan. Like, the guy is trying to do something here. Give him a break. You're gonna get on him about unity? It's gonna be a bipartisan effort. Why? Because it's helping the whole country. That's why it's a bipartisan effort. Most of the people aren't Jeff Bezos last time I checked. So they're gonna need this support.
Yeah, it's just, they don't want anything to happen, and not wanting anything to happen is gonna be flavored differently depending on the time. They think they can get a month or two out of, but you said unity to get nothing done. And then finally, eventually it's gonna be 6 months of, but elections are coming, don't do anything.
Right.
And they'll find some other obstructive way to stop things from happening. I don't care about the sprinkles on top of your obstruction or your desire for gridlock, because you fundamentally come from a political philosophy that feels like, hey, we're doing okay, we don't have any problems, so the government shouldn't function. Because if the government were to function and actually do things, they might have to raise taxes. That is the entirety of their political philosophy. I have no interest in that. I don't care about their PR attempts to dress it up.
It's disgusting, John, because their constituents need the help. This is a priority. This is urgent, and for them to be sitting on their laurels like this, it's really, really, really disgusting.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why people hate politics, is because of that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, a government that never delivers is, they've found sort of a way around that for some of their constituents. A lot of elected Republicans could use the help, but have been trained to think that the only point of government is to troll liberals. Or to demonize the trans community or something. Like, they found a way to channel people's anger into stuff that has literally nothing to do with economics, but other people can see through that. Exactly. Okay, let's quickly move through into at least one more story, just because I want to make sure that we get on a little bit of this, because there's so much every day that develops from it. Hi, there we go, nice. We've been wondering, will any Republicans say anything? We're not even expecting them to do anything, just say something about Marjorie Greene and her calls for the execution of her political opponents. All of that. And hey, we've got a little bit. Senate Minority Leader, that feels good to say, Mitch McConnell on Monday blasted Georgia GOP Representative Marjorie Greene's embrace of loony lies and conspiracy theories as a, quote, cancer for the Republican Party. He goes on to say, somebody who suggested that perhaps no airplane hit the Pentagon on 9/11, that horrifying school shootings were pre-staged, and that the Clintons crashed JFK Jr.'s airplane I hadn't even heard about that one, is not living in reality. This has nothing to do with the challenges facing American families or the robust debates on substance that can strengthen our party. That last bit is absolute nonsense. He has no interest in any of that. But he did call her someone who believes loony lies and conspiracy theories. Now, before you give him even just a couple little nibbles of lettuce of credit, he doesn't actually mention her by name, but he is very specifically and obviously talking about her. So, like, for him to be the first one really to say anything is to like stick his neck out of his shell is a little bit of bravery, but he's also doing it in like, God, you're doing that in a cowardly way. But it's all that we've got. So I guess a little bit of credit for Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. How sick must it make him, not just to not be in charge anymore, but to have the word minority in his title? It must just make him sick to his little stomach.
John, did you say give him a bite of lettuce because he looks like a turtle?
I didn't say that last part.
You said give him a little bite of lettuce. He is a coward. And it's so funny, right when you think he might step up and do the right thing, he doesn't. He does it like a half attempt to do it. And this woman was elected. Okay, That doesn't mean she needs to have any power and be given any prestigious positions. They should have known, the GOP should have seen this coming, should have seen that she was a Looney Tune coming into Congress. She got voted in Georgia. Georgia is a very diverse state, we're finding out. And I think what's really, well, we'll get into a little bit more about the unnamed person, Marjorie, but I'm not surprised that he's gonna come forward. But what I really think is happening is the GOP is really lost right now. They don't know if they should be pandering to the Marjorie Taylor Greene types, or are we done with her? Can we go back to old school Bush Republicans? Where are we at here? And they're still trying to figure out, and they want to see who's going to be carrying them across to the next political office that they want to hold. And so they're just throwing stuff out to the wind and seeing what takes. McConnell was okay with convicting Trump, saying it was his fault. Now he's not. Yep. So they want to know what's going to get him elected, and that's disgusting. Right now, we need politicians and people in power. Our leaders need to be leaders. They need to do what's right by the country and right for their constituents. And somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is not good for the country. She's hurting people. We're having to have people relive the trauma of these school shootings just to prove that it happened. Talk about gaslighting. I mean, it's been years now. We only haven't had a school shooting recently because we haven't had school.
Exactly, and they're trying to get them back in as soon as possible. She did respond, tweeting, "The real cancer for the Republican Party is weak Republicans who only know how to lose gracefully. This is why we are losing our country." So I want to address quickly both of those parts, because who only know how to lose gracefully. Okay, so you don't like Mitch McConnell. I mean, I guess he won re-election, but who has been losing gracefully? Well, since 2016, in 2016, they controlled the presidency, they controlled the Senate, they controlled the House. After 4 years of the man she worships as a living God being president, they don't have the White House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the House. He was the leader of the party. Any victories they got, they said were due to him, ipso facto, and Green, you can Google that. Theoretically, the losses are on him as well. So, I mean, granted, it doesn't really apply to what she said because he's never done anything gracefully. He can't even drink a glass of water gracefully, let alone lose gracefully. But he did lose. Of course, she doesn't accept that. She lives in a world where everything is whatever you want it to be. So she still insists that Trump actually won by a landslide. But you'll note that he's not in office anymore, Marjorie. So while you might maintain that thought, it doesn't give him any actual power. So look, she's gonna respond being strong in the face of these inconvenient things like reality or how you raise money as a Republican. I hope others will come out and support McConnell in this effort. I don't like any form of the Republican Party, but one that is just openly give us your flat earthers, give us your snake people, give us your whatever. I'm less interested in that one.
I'm really afraid, actually, John, because I think people underestimate just how many people believe in these Looney Tune conspiracy theories like Marjorie Taylor Greene. For every Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's 10 people that believe it, but they don't say anything on Facebook. They just read the posts that she puts. They watch the video of her bullying Hogg, his name is Hogg, the Parkland guy. I don't even understand the wildfire anti-Semitic. Really, I don't even understand what she's saying there. So but people are reading this stuff, and we know how these conspiracy theories take off. They give them a little tidbit of truth. People go and they look it up. Oh, that was true. So then the rest must all be true. And so this is a really dangerous place for our country to be in, because it's not just one Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's so many people like her out there, and we saw them right there storming the Capitol. And then for every person that was at the Capitol, there's 10 at home that were cheering them on. So this is something we need to take seriously. This is why Mitch McConnell needs to not take a half stab at it. He needs to come out, he needs to name it for what it was and do what AOC did. Call out the facts and the truth. And he's too afraid to do it. Why? Because he is trying to hold on to this vestige of power that he once had. And if she thinks that Trump really won the election, then how do we know her election was real? Why is it that their election was real, but his wasn't? This is not adding up, people.
No,
maybe we need to have a new election for you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Maybe we need to know if you really won. Let's hold a recall election. See.
Maybe. Okay, there's a little bit more. We're gonna have to punt till tomorrow, but Viviana, as always, thank you so much for joining us. In the meantime, until you're back on and until we can reveal, secret projects and all that, where can people see more of your content?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'll be promoting a show that I do, Contextualize This, every Friday. Every Friday, I do a Frisky Friday with a friend of mine, Arlene Santana. You might know her because she is your wife. You've met her a few times. You see her way more than me in COVID times. But yeah, check us out on Instagram Live. That's Fridays around noon. And you can always catch my show again on YouTube as well. But there will be more coming soon. Stay tuned, you guys. I'm excited to share with you as soon as I get the green light.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, John.
And for those of you at home, let's read a few of your comments before we close out the show so I can go get ready for the interview with Tom Hartman, which will be coming soon. First of all, thank you to Delta Zona for upgrading your membership to tier 2 and getting access to those top 10 lists. And Kiri McDonald as well, welcome to tier 1 YouTube membership. Eric says, I feel sorry for you to have to watch Tucker Carlson and the rest of the scum just to know what's going on. I honestly don't watch that much of it. Thankfully, there's people at Media Matters and all that will keep me apprised of what I need to know. I don't just randomly watch any cable news. I wonder, I've never watched Morning Joe ever. Just I want to watch a chunk of Morning Joe or any of them really. It seems weird to do. Are there people that do that? I don't know. There are, so we need to know what they're saying, but no, I don't do that. But I imagine that Tucker Carlson tonight is going to be a nightmare made manifest. I mean, can you imagine what he is going to say? What condescending, misogynistic, racist crap he's gonna say about AOC tonight? I don't wanna ruin your day. We're ending on a high point, but it's gonna be dark. What is Ben Shapiro saying right now about her? I think he might be broadcasting. We know how obsessed he is. Anyway, Mama Bear Dragon says, I empathize with AOC. It's hard not to feel like a victim. Instead, I use the emotion after my assault to make myself a stronger woman. The sadness, anger made me fierce. That's awesome, Mama. Thank you for letting us know that. Let's see. Dead Fish says, right-wing reporting about the man that yelled. Turned out that the person was a Capitol Police officer. Have not heard that before. Fake news. No. She. If you're talking about the video, she explains that wasn't one of the people, but those people were in the building at that point, and that was the fear that she felt. I believe that's authentic. Okay, let's see. Franklin Sharp Slicer, hey Franklin, says, find the ways, can we please defend our crown jewel, AOC. She's willing to speak for those who struggle for a home and clothes. Find, expose, rid them fast. It's our duty forever last. Thank you, Franklin, as always. Appreciate you watching. Bernie the Kiwi Bird says, the mockery and dismissal is yet another example of conservative apathy and selfishness. I don't know if it's unprofessional to say this, but I believe conservatism is a sociological disorder. Well, you can look up the dark triad to find a little bit about some of the personality characteristics that go with the especially right wing. Sursum Keatright says, what can we do to show AOC she is loved and we are there for her? Any websites or something? I'm sure just supporting positive comments on her Instagram or on Twitter. I'm sure we'll let her know that. Okay, over on Twitch, Mother Father Yeet says, I'm in Orange County. I'm connected on social media with many people who never post but 100% believe all this crap. Ugh. Let's see. Grumpy Old Nerd says the trial should look like the Watergate hearings, and let's put every insurrectionist who is invoking the I was just following orders defense on the stand. I think, who, I guess I could say who doesn't want witnesses? We know a few, obviously, but it's just insane. Anyway, and on maybe a little fun, positive note, I did want to let you know that in the month of February, if you get involved at tyt.com/trees to plant your change, something that they talk about on TYT quite a bit, you will be entered to win a mystery box from Shop TYT, curated by me, worth over $100. So all you have to do for this, if you want to get involved in planting your change, which is basically turning your economic support into tree planting, which is obviously great for reasons that we talk about all the time. All you have to do is sign up for free at tyt.com/trees. You get to plant a tree with your spare change when you want to, and you'll be entered to win an awesome mystery box. Can't wait to find out how that's gonna go, the curation process and everything, but just a fun little thing we'll be talking about throughout this month. So that's out there if you want to engage with that and have a little bit of fun. And I believe in 16 minutes or so, Deep Dive is gonna be happening over on the Twitchies. That's what I hear. So Jordan Ewell is gonna be there. I'm not gonna say the tagline because I worry that it makes them, oh, they're saying it in the chat though. I'll leave it to the Twitch chat. So head to twitch.tv/DYT if you haven't already, if you'd like to watch another Deep Dive with Jordan Ewell. He has great conversations, great guests on there. So definitely look forward to that. And I'm gonna go talk with Tom Hartman. That'll be coming out soon. And until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.